Mr. Radio Free Mormon, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, Mr. Real. How are you at Mormonism After Dark, the place where all the cool kids come to hang out on Friday night?
Pretty good, other than I feel like my dad, when I was growing up, my dad would shave his face in the bathroom sink with a crock pot or some kind of pot underneath to catch. He didn't like having the shaved hairs go down the drain. He wanted to he'd put them down the toilet and flush it and thought that was a cleaner way to handle it. Well, he would cut himself. Nevertheless, he would cut himself 3 or 4 times and have little pieces of toilet paper stuck on his face for half the Saturday morning. And I cut myself just a few minutes ago shaving. So I'm wearing a Band-Aid. Otherwise, I was going to bleed out on the show. So we're here. So you look a lot classier than I do.
Well, thank you. Do you know what I do to avoid that very thing, Bill?
Shave the day before.
I shave in the morning, yes.
Yeah, shave in the morning. Yeah, I left my electric razor out too. I could have used that and I didn't. And so here we are, folks, Band-Aid and all. There's no way, it's just not classy. It's either you bleed on the show or you wear a Band-Aid, and neither one's a win. So.
I wouldn't have even noticed that you had a Band-Aid on your chin.
Yeah.
On just the right part of it.
Right here, right there. I told you, I said if the show started, but on the other side, you may not even be able to see it. But
I would never have noticed it at all.
Yeah.
No, really, because well, okay. Well, anyway, at least it's on your face this time and not on some other part of your body.
That's right. Welcome, everybody, to Mormonism After Dark. And
now we know how he got the boil.
Now we know how he got the boil. I shaved my ass. That's right. It's the 22nd of November, 2024. Mormonism After Dark, Mr. Radio Free Mormon. I'll open up the phone lines, by the way, folks, and I'll put the number here up on the screen. It is 662-667-6667 or 662 Mormons. And I will put an invite into the chat as well for folks to come into the studio and join the show. And we look forward to it. Please, by the way, join the show. This is what makes the show fun on a Friday night at 8 p.m. Mr. Radio Free Mormon, what is on your mind? What are you thinking about?
Well, right now, what's in my hand is a wonderful cigarette holder. And this isn't the first time I've used it, but it's been a few episodes. I just wanted to point it out in case anybody out there had not noticed that I was holding something here. And once again, just thank the wonderful listener who sent me this and several others. And, just props, wonderful props for me to use. And I love props. I see now what Groucho meant when he talked about using his cigar as a prop.
Yeah.
And George Burns did too.
Yeah, he played God in the God movies. I think there was like 7 of them or something. And I remember my parents liking those, but I don't know if they were any good or not. What do you think? What say ye?
You should have seen the casting call for the position. It was amazing. No, it was a big deal because John Denver, he was really a big deal right then when the first one came out. George Burns was a big deal. It was amazing. People may not know this unless you lived through it. But of course, George Burns, I had no idea who George Burns was when I was a teenager, except that he was a really funny, very old guy who showed up everywhere, was even in movies. And part of the jokes that he would make is about how old he is. And just very funny, delightful guy. That's why he was everywhere, not knowing that he had an entire career in radio and in TV and probably in vaudeville before radio, for all I know, because a lot of those people did that. But yes, he was a huge deal, just about as big as John Denver was. So that was a big movie. I went and I saw it, and I was not really impressed.
John Denver. It was 6 feet tall and 10 feet wide and soft as a downy chick, made from the feathers of 47 geese. And then, on and on. But grandma's
the whole bolt of cloth for the tick.
If you say so.
I think so.
Grandma's feather bed. I sang the thing for a trip to Greenfield Village in like the 5th grade in Michigan. The Henry Ford Museum and Greenfield Village are a historical tourist place. They've got the car that Lincoln had at the time he was assassinated, I believe. They might have had Kennedy's car. They had lots of historical items at the Henry Ford Museum. in I don't know
Did
where.
you see Lincoln's car when he was assassinated?
Not Lincoln. Sorry, it was Kennedy's. Yes, not Lincoln's car. Duh.
But it was a Lincoln that Kennedy was right. Okay.
It had to have been. Not Marilyn Monroe, right?
Oh boy, that's a reference to last Wednesday's Mormonism Live, folks. If you haven't caught that,
that was an anachronism.
We have inside jokes that go from episode to episode in between different series names. So it's like it's a whole Marvel universe kind of thing going on.
Thank you for saving my ass there. So
you're welcome. Well shaved ass, I must say.
Thank you.
Smooth as a.
Say what?
Smooth as a.
Smooth as a baby's ass. Baby's behind.
You know, can I just do? I'm sorry. Were you talking? Were you saying something? Have I interrupted?
Regardless.
And forgotten what it was you were saying?
Go ahead.
Okay, because I just want to do this little bit here. Because I've got this. By the way, cheers, Old Bean. Happy Friday to you.
Oh, yeah, a little blueberry something here.
Happy Friday. I'm trying to toast you.
Oh, thank you.
Like this. Okay, we can do it like this.
Ready?
We toast here. Yes, to each other. We toast to you. All those at home.
Saul.
And at sea. This is like
is it Salu? Salu.
It may be. Yeah, I don't know.
It may not be.
I think you're talking Italian now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we do this, and you got this like this. You know, I start feeling kind of like Humphrey Bogart in my favorite movie, Casablanca. Okay. Except I think he had a white jacket on. Anyway. So I want to do just a little line from Casablanca, okay? All right. Of all the podcasts in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
Yeah. I don't know any other lines from any of that, so I'm just stuck laughing at the fact that you are doing a great impression, but I've got nothing.
You know what the original line is, Bill?
All the cities, all the towns, something like that.
All the gin joints.
All the gin joints she could have walked into. She walks into mine. Yeah.
They know each other from the past. If you haven't seen the movie, it's really great.
No.
Thank you. Amber Nielsen says, not bad. Thanks, sweetheart.
Salu. Skullbrost. I don't know what that means either.
Well, it's Tim Rathbone. It's amazing if you can make out one word out of three.
Skull.
Oh my gosh, Tim, I kid because I love.
You had mentioned that there were some books that you've been reading.
I was, and I've been reading this one for a long time. And the amazing thing is I just finished it today.
Title?
I've told you about it, right? Do you remember? Bleak House?
Bleak House, yes.
Bleak House?
You mentioned this a couple of times, yeah.
By Charles Dickens. I mean, my gosh, look at how many words there are in every page.
Wow.
And you don't get a break. There's no pictures in this book either, I'm telling you.
How many, and it came to passes?
There were none.
There were none.
There were no it came to passes. And it's 818 pages. Okay. I'm looking for some sympathy. No, it was an absolutely wonderful ride. And at the end, I was okay for it to end by that point. There were certain places in the plot toward the end where I got kind of lost, and I attribute that to reading. You know, when you read past the point when you should stop reading because you're nodding your head and you're going, okay, now what was going on? And you go back and you read a little bit to try and catch up the thread. Yeah, I did that too many times. So I expect the fault was with me. But what a magnificent, incredible book. I've read, I think, maybe half of the novels that he wrote so far, the most famous ones I've read. And this one was really the last on that list, I would say, of the famous ones. Hopefully I'll have time to go back and read those that are not so famous because I expect that they're probably pretty good too. But yet Dickens, he almost got me crying at the end. He almost did. That son of a bitch Dickens almost did it again. He's an amazing, amazing writer. And this is an incredible book. And it has a wonderful character in it who sort of comes out of nowhere in the last third. And he's an inspector This came out in 1861 or so. So it's before Sherlock Holmes, but we've got an inspector here. His name is Bucket. Bucket, Inspector Bucket. And not Inspector Gadget. Inspector. I'm speaking your language now, aren't I, with the Inspector Gadget reference? Okay. So just absolutely delightful. That character, I mean, you know, lots of characters, but that one really swept me away. Just wonderful. So I finished that. I'm really happy to report that. And that was all I had to say about that so far.
The family dog was named Gadget at my house. That's a true story. Yeah, so that's how I know Inspector Gadget. We wanted to name the dog. My mom wanted to name the dog after the dog in Inspector Gadget, but then when we told her the name of the dog was Brain, she was like, "That's stupid. We'll just call him Gadget."
Chucky. I'm just going to call this person Chucky. I hope that's okay. I'll just say Chuck. Probably lives in Kiev. He says, Bleak House was a slog for me. Yeah, I can hear you. It's a long one. Too many lawyers.
She said. You
know, there's so many characters, and I'm totally with you. There were times when I had trouble keeping track of the characters, and I attribute that to me. But yeah, it's tough. Wasn't that a high school English book everyone had to read? It probably was, because I avoided reading all of those high school English books that everyone had to read. I somehow met almost all of them. I had to read a couple, and then there were Cliff Notes, you know, for people like me. So at my age now, I would have hated this in high school. Yeah, I think that the educational system does a great disservice to students by forcing stuff on them that is above their head, and that really you cannot expect them to appreciate it. I mean, you might have 1 in 1,000 kid that's precocious enough. I would not have been that one. Okay. But what you end up doing is not only forcing them to try and, I don't know, educate them with the best in the world. And I suppose that's noble, but the actual result is that not only do you not teach them anything in the here and now, you make it so they never want to have anything to do with it for the rest of their life. And I think that's a disservice.
Yeah, if you read Shakespeare and you don't appreciate it, if you read Dickens and you don't appreciate it, if you read one of the great literary masters and you don't appreciate it, chances are you're going to dismiss the work and not go back to it ever again.
Yes. It's remarkable that I did. And I only did it because I was living a solitary life.
Yeah.
Effectively chained in the basement and fed with buckets of fish heads.
We've got a caller on the call line, but I want to ask you, what books were meaningful to you? I don't know about the fish heads, but what's that?
It's okay. Just a random reference of no import. The fish heads? No, we're not talking about the fish heads. You're talking about books.
What books were meaningful to you when you were in like not K through 12? I don't care about your younger years, but you know, your high school, middle school. Were there any books that stood out?
Yes.
What was the ones that did?
Okay. Let me tell you this: that I was not a big reader. I mean, I read comic books. Okay, not when I was a junior or a senior. That was kind of past me then. Probably when I was anyway. Definitely junior and senior. No. But I'm not reading a lot of books. I'm a TV head. At some point, I got interested in dance. So certain times in the evening were taken up at the dance studio. But other than that, I'm in front of the TV. And I've got shows that I got to watch. You know, Starsky and Hutch is not going to watch itself every Thursday evening. So I wasn't into reading, but there was one book that I checked out of the library that I'll never forget. And the reason I checked it out of the school library is because it had a bit of a reputation to it. It was supposed to be kind of edgy, and it had a very simple cover. The cover was sort of a blood red cover, just a solid red, and on it in gold letters was the title, The Catcher in the Rye. Now, I have no idea what the heck The Catcher in the Rye is. I don't any today. Maybe I did at one point and I've forgotten, but that's not really the point. The point is that me, a non-reader, a person averse to reading, if I haven't already made that clear, I started reading that book. I got it on a Friday. So the weekend is before me. I'm certainly not planning on reading in the weekend, but I got the book and I started reading it on the bus ride home after school. And I became enthralled with this narrative. So much so that I got off the bus, went into the house, went to my room, and I read nonstop until I was finished with that book at 10 o'clock that night. I have rarely had an experience like that with literature. Not even with the Book of Mormon did that happen.
Yeah. I had a thing for Newbery Award winners. Now, I don't know if all of these are, but they're all really great, well-known children literary pieces. But Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, Bridge to Terabithia, Hatchet, Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh, yeah. With Stuart Peterson. Stuart Peterson. You remember the first the First Vision movie from 1976?
Yeah, the old one in the really bad Technicolor kind of thing.
The kid who played Joseph Smith.
Oh.
Stuart Peterson.
He was the same kid who played in Where the Red Fern Grows.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And also Stranger at Jefferson High. I think I haven't seen that. And also as one of the lesser apostles in the Temple Endowment back when I went through it. I don't think he had a speaking part. Maybe he had one line. He kind of flubbed it. Yeah, they didn't do it.
The dogs were named Big Dan and Little Ann, I think.
They said it's just James. It's just John. Who cares? Nobody cares about them.
Yeah, who cares about those apostles? To this day.
He was James or John. I can't remember which. I'm sorry, Stuart. It's like Jack Cassidy is once repeated to have said, it's lonely in the middle.
Yeah. We've got a caller, so we'll, if you don't mind, we'll grab that.
No, please.
Okay, let's, what's the name, caller? Oh, let's try this again.
I was going to have to tell the caller they were on mute.
Caller, are you there?
Hi, this is Jim.
Hey, Jim. Go ahead, my friend. You're on.
Jim, hello.
Hey, it's great to speak with both of you. I've been watching for a long time, and I've engaged on various topics and talked back to the TV, hoping to talk to y'all. But I realized tonight it's like I have this great joke that I think RFM will get because I've gotten every single one of your cultural references.
Okay, no pressure, Jim.
And
thanks.
Lo and behold, you mentioned George Burns.
Yeah.
And during the lockdown, I was going down a YouTube rabbit hole and saw a clip of George Burns telling Carol Channing Walter Matthau's favorite joke.
Is this a question as to whether I know what that is?
No, I just wanted to get through those three cultural references, and of course, there's a delay. So I'm.
Yeah. If you're asking if I know the three people, I was going to say, yeah, knowing. No, you said George Burns. You said Channing. Carol Channing. No, that's the different actress. Excuse me.
Yes.
Carol Channing.
Carol Channing and Walter Matthau.
Yes, if it was Walter Matthau, it's probably a dirty joke.
It's not. It goes as follows. Teacher says to the students in class, first student, what does your father do? And he says, oh, my father's a lawyer. Says to the second student, what does your father do? Says, well, my dad's a doctor. Says to the third student, what does your father do? He says, my father doesn't do anything. He's dead. Teacher says, oh, I'm sorry. What did he do before he died? He went, oh.
Okay, Jim, I think you're going to have to work on the delivery. That the lead up is really good. The punchline lacking.
It's I haven't been on air that much. So, but the other thing you mentioned, which is bizarre,
say the punchline.
Jim, I want you to work on this. I'm going to coach you for just a second here. Okay, let's work on this punchline. All right, because I want this to be a good joke for you. So The question is, what did the teacher says? Oh, what did he do before? Can you say that part? Just take it up there.
What did he do before he died?
Okay, you're killing me, Smalls. Are you there, Jim?
I am.
All right, and the punchline is
Give the line before the punchline, just like you did, and then the punchline.
So the third student, what did your father do before he died? He went, oh!
So he was in the opera.
Actually, George Burns does it as Burns delivers it as he said, ooh. So that might be better, but
and it's probably also helps if it's a visual gag.
Exactly, yeah. Well, if you're George Burns with a cigar or whatever, you're going to laugh no matter what the punchline is. But two other very quick things. One is you mentioned the car in which Kennedy was assassinated. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. suburbs, and I was actually a Kennedy baby, meaning I was born before November of 63, in 1963. Around age 5 or 6, we were at a Ford dealership in the suburbs, and the dealer saw that I was bored and said, let me show you something. Took my mother and I out or into another area of the garage to show us.
Okay, remember, this is a family show, Jim.
That limousine.
Okay, you can go R, but don't go, NC-17.
Do you want to see something cool?
Okay, so the car hop,
and
whom you've never met before, says you want to come over here and see something.
I tried to verify. Very, very funny. I have tried to verify it, but have been unable. And
what did he show you?
Thought I'll lead you with is
Jim.
It was
I think I know, but what did he show you?
Kennedy's car. That's
the
what
limousine.
He said. Yeah, Kennedy's limousine. He said that. But
yeah,
I think the delay made all that fall apart.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do this with Bill. Jim, you watch this, okay? Jim, watch this one, all right? Okay, so Bill, ask me, say, RFM, what's the most important part of telling a joke?
RFM, what's the most important?
Timing. Ta-da! That one was for you, Jim.
Yes, well, I realized tonight, jokes over the delayed phone lines is not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Jim, what was your last thought? You said you had a third thing.
The final thing was you were referring to Dickens tonight, RFM, and it made me think, where did the phrase "what the Dickens" come from? And I guess Dickens apparently was a nickname for the devil, so it predates Charles Dickens by decades, if not centuries, and actually apparently is in The Merry Wives of Windsor.
Oh, what the word, the Dickens?
What
Is that
the
where it comes from?
What the Dickens?
But let me see here.
That's apparently it's in The Merry Wives of Windsor, but I have not verified that. I was just looking at it while waiting for the call. So I've struck out 3 times. I think I better run.
No, don't go anywhere yet. Okay.
Good night, and thank you for your time.
Okay.
No, I won't.
All right. So let's see here. What does "you little Dickens" mean? Well, we probably don't have time to do this, but I know that Dickens, what the Dickens, it's sort of like when you want to say, what the hell, but you don't. You say, what the heck?
Right.
Or you say snap instead of something else.
Tonight's episode brought to you by Dickens Cider. Dickens Sparkling Cider, brewed and bottled at the Cool Store Craft Cidery, Tamar Valley, Tasmania. Get your own glass of Dickens cider.
And you know who else was from Tasmania, don't you? Errol Flynn. Where we get the expression "in like Flynn."
Not Flint.
In like Flint.
In like Flynn.
See, all good things can be traced to Tasmania. Ultimately.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, thank you, sir. Have a great rest of your week.
Yes, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. There's another call. I'm a little nervous though. Like there's another call in the
Is it
queue.
Jacob Hansen?
No. It looks like maybe it's a Sarah. Well,
You're nervous about Sarah?
No. I'm nervous about phone calls.
Why are you nervous about phone calls, my friend?
If the next person
Hi.
wants to tell a joke too. Sarah, do you have any jokes for us?
No.
Okay.
Oh, but why are you nervous to take my call?
Because the last phone call had some glitches to it, and I've started off the show a little messed up anyway. So,
It's a little bit glitchy with the phone. But anyway, I have something serious to ask you guys. I would love to be jokey and funny, but this is not funny to me. Did you see the article in the paper about Lavinia? Is that her name, Lavinia Fielding Anderson?
Yes, it is, and I did.
What did you think? I thought that
I'm
was
outraged.
so
I'm outraged.
It's the saddest thing I've ever read, and they wouldn't let her son be part of it and sent him an email. Well,
Can I tell you, first off, am I remembering it correctly that she had made an appeal to the first presidency for rebaptism in 2018?
yes,
And they denied it.
yes.
Am I correct that that is 25 years after she was excommunicated? It's one of the September 6th in 1993.
Right. And she went to church every week
And twice on
sat
Sunday.
there, not taking and never took the sacrament and was volunteered, played the piano, did whatever they needed, was a faithful member. Her bishop thought she was wonderful, her stake president. They talked to the whatever they do to tell the first presidency. Why on earth would they? So, but the one thing the article didn't say was what was her sin? What did she do that was so terrible?
I believe she wrote the article that was published in Sunstone magazine detailing factually a series of abuse of leaders in the church, how they had to abuse their position in one way or another.
Well, big deal. And the other people were reading.
it is to them.
You know,
it's a big deal.
I guess, but they let those other two people back in, Maxine Hanks and a real Gileadi or something.
Abraham,
Right, he had been disfellowship, but yeah, he was allowed back into full fellowship.
but she violated the biggest rule of them all.
It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.
No, it's true.
Right. I forgot.
That's the cardinal sin.
I forgot. That's the big one. Well, the poor thing. And now her son is upset because they went ahead and whatever first, but they did it out at the Jordan Temple, didn't tell him, and then send him an email.
Right. And I'll tell you my thoughts about this. I am going to be covering this on Monday as well on the newscast. But Bill and I were talking about this before. I've talked about it. Martine, I think, had brought it to my attention originally, Martine Smith, and sent it to me. And we shared our thoughts about it. And we both had a lot of them. But here's the thing. She's been going to church every week for 25 years. She asked to be rebaptized. It has to go through the first presidency. It's 2018. Nelson is the president. Oakes is his counselor. So is Irene. And they say no.
Right.
Here's the thing. A good man or a good woman or a good dog doesn't do that.
No.
These are not good men. This is what I've got to tell you. These are not good men. My journey through this church over decades has been this, that I went from knowing, you know how it goes, believing that the leaders of the church were prophets who had direct communication with God face to face, and they communicated to us what God told them. And then as I grew up more and more and paid attention and studied, I changed and I realized, well, okay, They don't have face-to-face communication, but they have some sort of ambiguous inspiration that keeps them mostly on track. Then I went to the stage of these guys have no inspiration at all, but at least they're good men trying to do the best they can. And then I realized they're not even good men. That was the last stage of my deconversion to the church, that they were not even good men trying to do the best they can. And when I heard about this story, I told Martine, this is Exhibit A under the category of these are not good men. President Nelson, you are not a good man. You should be ashamed of yourself. Elder Oaks, you're not a good man. Well, that's not like that's a newsflash, but you're not a good man either, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And President Eyring, you are not a good man, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And now, I guess you've really got something to cry about.
It's a weird
Okay, that's all I have to
thing.
say.
It's a weird thing when the leaders and the members who believe and are more orthodox, they would look at something like this and go, you should be grateful she got baptized. She got rebaptized. She got replaced into the church. She's back in. You should be thrilled. And people don't realize that that process, the way that played out, looks like just a backhanded sort of just a dig when you didn't have to dig. You could have just let the person back in, but you made it personal. It was a horrible act.
Exactly. And, I'm sure, the believers all think that she's happy now in whichever kingdom and, enjoying reunion with her husband. But for those of us who think that that's not really happening, how sad that she died being denied the one thing she wanted, the one thing. Anyway.
No, I hear you 100%. I don't know about the next world. The one thing I do know about is this world. And they gave her the middle finger in this world. And they crushed that in her after 25 years of going to a church she's been excommunicated from for telling the truth in writing about church leaders abusing their positions of authority.
Well, it's just so sad. I'm glad you're going to go into this more on Monday, is it? I'll be listening. And
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me talk about it. I didn't want to bring down your show because normally you do kind of fun stuff, but this one was just driving me crazy. So,
well, I will tell you, in all honesty, Bill and I were talking about this before the show, and because I'm worked up about it, obviously, and this isn't exactly a worked up kind of show normally. So I said, well, look, if it comes up, we'll talk about it. And it came up. And I appreciate your calling and bringing it up so we could talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Yep. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it is a middle finger. And the fact that she kept attending, she asked to be taken back into the church. It would have been such a gracious thing to do. And instead they did the thing that like everyone would look at with any sort of morality and ethics and would go, that's just an atrocious thing that you did. That was so disrespectful. You essentially spit on her as she passed away, only to, while everybody's gone and there's no way she could ever see it in this life, let's all assume that it all worked out on the other side. But no.
Here's the thing, is that it's not even a good move politically. It's a bad move politically.
Yeah.
Because now this happens, they have a black eye. But think about it, 2018, people were already hemorrhaging out of the church. It had been 7 or 8 years since it was that. Who was the church historian before Snow?
Marlon Jensen.
Yeah, since he said that we've never seen people leaving the church like this since the days of Kirtland, right?
Yeah.
And that was, I think, 2010 or 2011, maybe 10. But, if this is 2018, they know they've got a problem. And just practically speaking, guys, come on, who's advising you? If you have a person who's one of the September 6th, who got excommunicated from the church, but who has been continuing to attend faithfully for 25 years, and she asks you, can I be rebaptized? If I'm President Nelson, I say, come on down here. We're going to have a meeting. We're going to have all the first presidency here. We're going to have the photographers here. We're going to get wonderful pictures. And we are going to put this on the front of the church news that one of the September 6th has come back to the fold after 25 years. And here's the first presidency welcoming her back personally. That's incredible. That would be wonderful, wonderful press for the church. People are coming back, even people who got excommunicated and were famous, at least with the number of September 6th, right? So that would be great. And what that underscores for me, and I hope I'm not going on and on too much about it, I'll make the point here, which is this. It didn't make any sense for them to do it in any way. It was against their interest to do it, to deny her request for baptism, rebaptism in 2018. And what that underscores for me is the depth of their malice and their meanness toward Lina, because they had to go against their interests to be that mean. And I think it's despicable.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim is down below there, so we can put
Tim's going to lighten the mood. Are you going to lighten the mood here, Tim?
Good evening. This is for you.
Thank you. It looks like Blue
Skull.
Moon.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Was that the Marcells who sang that? A lot of people sang it.
I don't remember.
Well, there he goes. I'm glad we got that on the camera.
I am so incensed about this.
About
this is
Lina.
so disgusting.
Hey, Tim, did you know Lina?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Wow.
Lina was a wonderful woman. She edited some of my papers. I just loved her. She was wonderful. And what they did to her was totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, it just really pisses me off that she applied a couple of times to be rebaptized, and they denied her. And then I can't remember her husband's name. He dies, and then she dies, and then they do this to her son. That's a slap in the face. I mean, it's just disgusting. It's morally reprehensible.
Yeah.
I was telling Bill before the show, I was saying, you know, if I took away everything I know about the church and all the issues they have with history and, you know, scriptures, Book of Mormon, blah, 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 if I took it all away and I just knew what's in the missionary discussions, this act alone by the first presidency would tell me beyond a doubt that this is not God's church and they are not his apostles.
Yeah. They're
Whatever
evil men. They're pernicious men.
Yeah. Whatever their radar is for doing the right thing, they just don't do the right thing. Over and over and over again, they don't do the right thing. And this is just one more time of them not doing it. It's almost like they misbehave on purpose, trying to see how much of a contradiction they can be to the claims of the faith. And still people just believe and stay in.
The membership is like a slug, and they will get pushed any way that the leaders tell them to go. And they'll follow blindly, and they get prodded now and then by the leadership to do something. But, you know, they're just a big morass of protoplasm, and they do whatever the leaders tell them to do. And it's just disgusting. It's just so disgusting to me.
Yes, it is. I'm
Think
sorry
about-
that this has happened. Isn't that weird? I have this personality that, like, somebody else does something horrible and I didn't do anything, but I feel bad. It's like this sympathetic, you know, I feel bad for something that somebody else did, and I'm actually apologizing to you for it. And that's why I caught myself. But yeah, this is terrible. I'm sorry that you feel this way. I'm sorry I feel this way. What I'm sorry is that the church did such a dumbass, vindictive thing.
Yeah.
And it's not the church. And that's one of the things that focuses this so much, isn't it, Tim? It's not the church, because this went to the first presidency.
Exactly.
And the first presidency then is the same first presidency now. And they said no.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, I knew this was going to wind me up.
Well, when I saw it on ex-Mormon Facebook, I said, who? You know, they didn't say the name. This guy Pavel, he didn't say the name. And I'm going, who is it? And I looked it up. It was Levina. And I hit the ceiling. I was like, God damn those bastards. Fuck them all. I mean,
yeah.
All she did was, and it was in dialogue, by the way, not Sunstone.
Oh,
but all she did was reveal some issues. And that's all she did. And they kicked her out for it.
She didn't make anything up.
No.
She didn't spread lies.
I contributed to that. And I contributed to Mormon Alliance. There's some of my case reports are on at Mormon Alliance webpage, stuff that I contributed, that I knew what's going on.
Think about it. I mean, leaders of the church, financial fraud, SEC, that whole thing. You get Elder Oaks lying about electroshock therapy. He's called on it, just refuses to account for it. You get over and over and over again, this thing lies and deceives and obfuscates, and then the saying, right? It's wrong to criticize leaders if the criticism is true. That really is the number one rule, because that's all she did. All she did was tell the truth, and the truth was not beneficial to the maintaining of the good character of those involved in those issues at the time, leaders of the church. And you can do all the other things. You can lie, you can financially hide money, you can create dummy companies, you can cut things out and hide them so nobody ever learns the peculiar First Vision account. You can lie, cheat, and steal. But the one time a person just tells the truth, that's the person who really gets punished. That's the person who gets punished.
Well, especially when they're telling you the truth about the leadership lying, cheating, and stealing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strange thing.
Well, it's not a help.
Did you expect anything different, though, Tim? I mean, it is Mormonism doing what Mormonism does, which is do the shitty thing over and over again. It can't be surprising.
Well, I didn't know that I knew that she'd requested to be rebaptized after she died, but I didn't know her son was doing it.
You knew that someone had requested on her behalf after she died.
Well, she said many times, when we were in a gathering, when somebody would ask her about it, well, I'm going to be rebaptized after I die. At least that was her hope, you know. I mean, even then she didn't know that they let her back in.
Yeah.
Trying to remember, last time was, I think she said something like, if they'll let me, even after she's dead. That was years ago. But yeah.
Well, it's always a revelation to me when I find out how low the leaders of the church can sink.
They keep sinking.
Just when I think they can't go any lower, they do something like this.
They keep lowering the bar. It's through the floor now. It's sub-basement. You know,
that's what that policy meant. They said it was the missionaries raising the bar. Well, they raised the bar for the missionaries, but they lowered the bar for the leadership.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for calling, Tim. You hang in there, okay?
Thank you. You too, and you guys take care and post.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right. Well, there is that. There's another thing that happened this week in Mormonism, I guess.
Oh my gosh, bongo.
This, we had Saints Unscripted and Thomas Wayman tell us that the Joseph Smith translation was only a commentary, but nobody inside the church from an official point of view has said anything up until this moment when Brad Wilcox, a member of the Young Men's General Presidency, an auxiliary organization in the leadership of the church, said the following.
When Joseph Smith did the translation of the Bible, which wasn't necessarily a translation, it was more of an inspired commentary.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it's called a translation, you fool.
So what evidence is
Sorry.
What evidence is there? What would give anyone permission to call it a commentary and not a translation? What in the historical record would give one the room to say that, RFM?
You mean in the church's historical record?
Right. Like, why did we think it was a translation forever and now
because that's what Joseph Smith said it was.
He said it was a translation.
He said it was a translation, and it was restoring what it was that, well, everybody knew that when he said translation, he wasn't translating it over again. What he's doing is he's supplying the things that were missing, that were taken out, as talked about in the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon talks about the Bible, remember, going through the hands of a Jew and having all those things taken out and going through it's in the hands of a Jew. That's how he sees it in vision. But then it goes through the great and abominable church, and all the plain and precious things are taken out. And this Joseph Smith translation is to put those things back, take out the things that were put in there that shouldn't have been in there in the first place, and change anything that needs changing. So those kind of three things: adding, subtracting, or changing. And the goal was to restore the Bible to its original pristine form when it was written down by the original author. That was the whole goal. And that's what Joseph Smith said. And that's what everybody understood. And that's what we understood as a church until the 1970s, at least, and into the 1980s, when Robert J. Matthews, a professor, ancient scripture, I'm sure, at BYU, had been making inroads, building bridges with the reorganized, as they were called at the time, because they had the actual Joseph Smith translation, and the LDS Church in Utah did not. So they looked at any publications based upon that by the reorganized with suspicion. And Robert J. Matthews, bless his soul, was able to build bridges on this issue. And then we were able to look at the originals. And we found out, no, they hadn't been goofing with stuff, and they hadn't been playing fast and loose. They were actually, the reorganized were actually following the text that they had, the original. And that was when we put them in the footnotes of the 1979 new edition of the Bible that the LDS Church came out with. For the first time, they had their own version instead of using the Cambridge edition. And so, and then they had the longer parts of the Joseph Smith translation in the back of the Bible in an appendix. So I think that's the situation with that. Now, why is it that we're talking about this exactly, Mr. Reel?
I just think it's interesting. So do me a favor. Pretend you're Brad Wilcox. Okay, pretend you're Brad Wilcox, and I'm just going to ask you a question.
Oh, Brad. That's
Yeah.
right. We're talking about Brad Wilcox.
Yeah. So Brother Wilcox, forever and ever and ever, Joseph Smith on down to, all the way down to Bruce R. McConkie for sure, and further past that almost as certainly. The understanding of the Joseph Smith translation is what Radio Free Mormon just said, which is that it was a restoring the Bible as a flawed text that had parts removed and lost and corrupted by corrupt priests and those who mishandled the scriptures all through the centuries. Mr. Wilcox, what gives you insight to now know that it is just a flawed commentary? How did you go from translation to commentary? How did you get there? Can you show me your work, please? And the only thing he can say, and he won't say it, he have to come up with some other answer. But the only thing he could say is that we now know that the Joseph Smith translation is anything but a restored biblical text restored to its ancient form. So we have to go with some other answer. And that's the only thing he's got.
Yes.
Yeah.
Robert J. Matthews would write books about it, and he was very involved in it. He wasn't just involved politically in getting that text available for publication by the LDS Church, but he was also authoring books in which he was arguing for the accepted understanding that indeed the Joseph Smith translation was, on these instances that he's setting forth in his book, right, restoring what had been there before in earlier texts or different texts, variations of the same text, right? Variants. So that's what he did. That's what it was. And there was no talk about it being a comment, not that I saw anywhere. Okay. But no talk of it being a commentary.
No.
Who cares about a commentary? This was scripture.
They won't tell you how they got there, but because of what we know, the answer, there is no other answer. The only answer is we discovered that Joseph Smith plagiarized from things like Adam Clarke's commentary, and the edits that he made to the scriptures do not fit with ancient manuscripts. They don't fit with what ancient manuscripts would have even looked like. They just don't represent that kind of language or those kinds of ideas, and they're getting things wrong. And I told you the other night on Mormonism Live, I said, the Book of Moses, where did that come from? And you said, that's part of the Joseph Smith translation. And I said, yeah. And that's in the scriptures. So they are now the very next step. They haven't thought this through. The very next step now is they have to acknowledge that the Book of Moses is just a Bible commentary.
Flawed commentary.
But they didn't put two and two together yet, I don't think. Somehow nobody in the room. You think they did?
No, you did. I just want everybody to know, if you didn't see when Bill came up with this the first time, which I think was last Wednesday, at least in my presence, and I was overawed by the power of this argument, that if you take this to you don't even have to take it that many steps down. It's like a 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
That if the Joseph Smith translation is now a flawed commentary, so is the Book of Moses.
Yeah.
A flawed commentary, because the Book of Moses is the Joseph Smith translation of the first 5 or 6 chapters of Genesis. And that's scripture.
Does the church leave in the Book of Moses? Does the church leave a flawed commentary in its scriptures?
The faithful members aren't the ones who know about this stuff. In fact, the faithful members are the ones who do what they're told and avoid hearing about this kind of stuff.
It would have been fun to be there with Brad. Brad, excuse me, Brad. Yes, Brother Real. Because again, I've interviewed him. We know each other. Yes, Brother Real. What about the Book of Moses? And can you explain how you got from translation to commentary, please?
And I'll tell you once again, like I did on Wednesday, the reason they got there is because we have found, and by we I mean everybody who finds texts, right? Ancient texts in libraries or under the sand or in catacombs. There are thousands of texts that have been found by this point. And not just thousands of texts, but I'm also including variations of different texts. There are so many that have been found. And what I'm talking about, texts representing books that we have in the Bible today. For comparison purposes, there is no example, and I studied this before. Remember when I was an apologist back in the 1980s? So I'm reading these books. But there is no example, to my knowledge, of any variation or variant in any ancient text of a Bible book that corresponds to a Joseph Smith translation alteration.
Yeah.
That was not available to Joseph Smith through other means, including the Adam Clarke Bible commentary.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach back out to Thomas Wayman, maybe even tonight while we're doing the show, and I'm gonna just asked me if he'll come back on, because those would be the two main questions I would want to ask is help me understand how we got from translation to commentary. And if that's true, then what do we do with the Book of Moses? And I think, you and I had talked, I think I'd like this Wednesday on Mormonism Live to go into an interview that one of the members of Saints Unscripted had with an LDS historian,
Right.
Who acknowledges, after all of our work on it's indiscernible from making Mormonism indiscernible from a fraud, this will be the final nail in the coffin, because he, by his argument, makes prophets, whether they are real or not, indiscernible from a fraud. And it fits right along, I think, with the Brad Wilcox stuff going on. And I think folks will be interested to hear that show, because we'll play some of those sound bites. And I think it'll be a fascinating conversation about how far the church has come. It has moved so far. You don't even those of us on this side of things don't comprehend how far it's moved.
Do you know who's been moving it, baby?
Yeah.
You and me, pal. You and me.
Yeah.
And a few assorted others.
Yeah. It's had to confront its history and acknowledge that much of the things within its system that it thought to be true just aren't. They're not defense. It's not that they couldn't argue they're true. They can argue faith stuff all the time. Some of these things are now indefensible, that they're needing to throw in the towel. They need to move on from it and not have it bite them in the ass as scholarship and information becomes more readily available.
And what you're going to find is not only is Ben Spackman, that historian that you're talking about, who gets interviewed, that we'll be talking about on next Wednesday's Mormonism Live, right?
Yeah.
The guy, Austin Fife, who writes the CES letter response called the Light on Truth letter. So actually the Light and Truth letter. I call it the Light on Truth letter because it's heavy on deception and light on truth. The Light on Truth letter. Okay.
A sprinkle.
Anyway, he seems to be making the same argument. And we'll go over that in the episode tomorrow night that airs tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, with me and Colby, the Mormon Legal Eagles, taking on, breaking down, and thoroughly debunking Chapter 1 of the Light on Truth letter. It's a lot of fun. Colby's a brilliant attorney, and I think we have a lot of fun talking to each other. I have a lot of fun talking to him. I'll just speak for myself. He probably hates every second of it.
I was just going to put up the thumbnail for this. So this releases tomorrow night at 7 p.m. The Mormon Legal Eagles, Chapter 1, Manipulations and Fallacies.
Is my forehead that high?
It is in this particular snapshot we got of you.
I don't like that haircut.
Yeah. Well,
it's better than this haircut.
They're both great.
You see, Colby, he looks so nice, so trim, so young, so fresh, so intelligent, so precocious. And I just kind of look like, I don't know, I'm something from outer space.
So check it out, folks, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. If you want to see them tackle Chapter 1. And by the way, when you watch that tomorrow night, put in the comments if you want to see them do the chapters after Chapter 1. If you enjoyed the episode so much, they have both said they are willing, if the audience wants it, to go through the rest of the chapters as well. So please put that in the comments of the show tomorrow night.
Okay, hang on just a second. Hang on. This got something important here. Shoot, here it is. Mo says, please let me help with the graphic design.
I could use the help. If you would
Mo,
like to,
would you?
please.
Could you, would you?
Yeah.
Because I came up with the design myself and then Bill put it into effect. This is what I drew up on my legal pad this morning. Right here. Can you see that, everybody?
Hold on. Let's put this back up now. So show us again.
Oh, here. Just want to make sure there's nothing too compromising on it.
Yeah.
See, there it is. Can you see that, everybody?
That's what
Why is it over there.
This is what I turned it into.
Why is that not big? Oh, there. I see, because it's next to it. Okay. There it is. Very good. By the way, when you talk about the Joseph Smith translation as being something next to Scripture, somebody pointed out in the live chat, which I didn't see at the time, last time we were talking about it, they were talking about, well, hang on a second. I'm not the only one who's ever been in a Sunday school class and have somebody read something from the New Testament and then have either a student or the teacher or somebody say, aha, but The Joseph Smith translation says it's super scripture. Okay. I don't care what the church says about it. It is treated by the members as superior to scripture and something that can be used to amend scripture authoritatively. In other words, it's treated by members the same way it was talked about by Joseph Smith and about everybody else in the Mormon church up at least until the 1970s.
Think about this too. This has now added another way in which, when Joseph Smith uses translation in all 5 of his translation productions, think about what the church is actually claiming about each of these. Book of Mormon is a literal translation of Reformed Egyptian off of gold medal plates into English by the gift and power of God by placing a stone in a hat. The book of Abraham is Joseph's looking at Egyptian papyri, but God is only using that as a catalyst for telling Joseph what it is that's makes up the book of Abraham, but which has nothing to do with the Egyptian papyri. The Joseph Smith translation is, when Joseph says translation there, what he means is just a commentary. He's not actually translating anything. The Kinderhook plates is a complete fraud on its own. And even when apologists like Don Bradley and Mark Ashurst McGee try to get involved, they actually fuck it up even worse. And don't even know it because they don't think permutations down the road. They don't have the wherewithal to go, before I make this case, might I ask, what will this mean for everything else in Mormonism? And we put that together in one night's episode to draw a conclusion that they haven't thought of. And Don said he was working on a solution to that problem. And I like Don, but Don hasn't come up with any solution to that problem. And then what else? We've got one more translation production. I want to say Book of Moses, but it's a Joseph Smith translation as well. And what I mean by all of that is translation is a moving goalpost itself. It means something different in every instance of translation that Joseph Smith did.
There's 4, right? You mentioned them: Book of Mormon, Book of Abraham, Joseph Smith translation,
Book of Kinderhook plates.
Okay, yes, of course.
What Book of Moses, though, is the Joseph Smith translation. I've always kind of separated it out, but it is the Joseph Smith translation. Translation doesn't mean translation anymore in Mormonism.
It means a flawed commentary.
Flawed commentary. Well, is the Book of Mormon a flawed commentary? Is the Book of Abraham a flawed commentary? Because it's only new insights that would keep them from having to go that far.
The Book of Mormon is a flawed commentary.
Yeah. Yeah, that fits better, doesn't it?
So as soon as we can get about the work of and convince everybody to understand that the new definition for scripture is flawed commentary, then we can go back to calling it all scripture again, and nobody needs to be the wiser.
Yeah. Nothing. These are not the droids you are looking for.
These are not the scriptures you're looking for.
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's changed so much. Anyway, there's that. We've got a few calls in the call bank, so I'll
yes, please.
All right. Caller, what's the name?
My name's Russ.
All right, Russ, you're on Mormonism After Dark with Radio Free Mormon and Bill Reel. What's on your mind?
Oh, I got to be honest with you. I'm a little nervous. I've never called into a line like this before. So
Don't worry about it, Russ. There's only thousands of people watching you right now.
okay.
No pressure.
Well, all right. Yeah.
It's really only 359. If that helps.
Oh, okay. Okay. The one thing that's been on my mind for a while was your podcast about members of the church being fake.
Yeah, that's been a while, huh?
Yeah. So honestly, I have had my own experience with that as well. And your episode really opened my eyes because for a long time, I thought I was the only one that felt that way.
Yeah, I do an episode. It was called "Why Are Mormons So Fake?" Wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember what I said, but
it's so eye-opening.
tell me about your experience.
You're talking about Yeah, so this is back in 2007. I was at a multi-stake young single adult conference in Arvada, Colorado, and it was huge. There were probably like thousands of young single adults there, and they had us get into group activities, and the interaction was just so forced. It felt very inauthentic. It was as if they were trying to put on a performance in order to get people to impress them. It's like they were trying to act like super spiritual just so they can get a date, and I felt very put off by it. And I thought that I was just being real, and the more real I was, the more they hated it. And so, for example, there was like this young woman in this group, and she's like, "Have you seen the Singles Ward? It's so funny." It's like, yeah, it's a good movie. Oh, and I hope that this and this and this. Oh, I just felt so spiritual, and I'm just increasingly turned off, and I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? I've never been in an environment like this before, and later on in my, as I've attended church when I was going to church at the time, I just felt like every interaction was just so forced, and it was as if they were trying to put a good impression on others. And I thought for the longest time people were supposed to go to church to, feel the spirit.
I didn't do that, RFM. Oop, I think I know what happened, though. Give me a second, caller. For some reason, you switched over, and I don't know why. So give me a second here.
Don't go into the light.
Don't go into the light. Carol Ann, go into the light. Go into the light, Carol Ann. Caller, try that again. Oh, let's
He
try
went into the light, didn't he?
I don't know what happened.
Damn it! I told you, don't go into the light. They always go into the light.
Yeah, I think that's it. Caller, are you there?
Well, we can certainly talk about what the subject the caller was bringing up.
Let's.
The fakiness. This is why it's human nature that we're going to try and look better than we are. I think try and impress, whatever, but I think when you're in the context of a religion that is focused on works, especially one that's focused on works to the extent that the LDS church is, I think you're going to have that kind of fakeness on steroids, because everybody has to pretend that they're doing everything that the Mormon church wants them to do, when the reality is that nobody can do everything that the Mormon church wants them to do. So you've got to pretend. Like I say, in the LDS church, maybe in other churches, it probably is, that church is a place we go on Sunday to pretend we're perfect. And apparently they do that at young single adult dances as well.
Excuse me.
Absolutely.
Dan did point out another translation. You've got the Parchment of John, D&C section 7, translated from parchment, written and hid up by himself, which is a text that Joseph didn't have available to him, but which he saw in vision.
Yes. And I wonder if that idea, which is just coming to me now, thanks for bringing that up, Dan, if that corroborates at all. Okay. There are different witness statements about what the heck happened when Joseph Smith was translating the Book of Mormon, right? And of course, none of them actually saw it, but Joseph Smith is talking and they're writing it down, presumably. I believe that one of them has Joseph Smith with his face in the hat, looking at the stone, and above the stone appears a piece of parchment with letters on it. Or it might just be one letter, I don't know. And that Joseph Smith would then read off that. It would appear on a parchment, is the point that I'm trying to make here, according to one of the witnesses of the Book of Mormon. And I wonder, we don't have Joseph Smith saying that's how it went. All he said was, by the gift and power of God. Next subject, please. But I wonder if Joseph Smith saying that this part of the Gospel of John, DNC 7, he says it was from a parchment, which means that he could see it on a parchment. Otherwise, I don't know how he would know it was on a parchment, because it's buried somewhere over in the Middle East, presumably.
I've got Russ back on. So Russ, if you want to turn your TV down or something, that'd be great.
Yeah, and so I wonder if.
Okay.
So that's a great point you made. I'm so glad you rejoined us.
I kind of had to call back. My phone got disconnected as I was making my point, and I was like, wait a minute, hello?
Well, I'm sorry, your name again, sir, or whatever name you wish to go by?
Russ.
Russ. Hey, Russ, while you've been gone, we were just putting some 2 and 2 together. I'm sure Dan and others are way ahead of us on this. But that the fact that Joseph Smith described the translation of the parchment in section 7 of the Doctrine and Covenants as being on a parchment, even though it was not in his presence, may lend some corroboration to the witness statement. And I think Dan put that up there, didn't he? By David Whitmer, that when Joseph Smith translated with his face in the hat, that a parchment would appear, and on the parchment was the translation, because those sound similar. And they're also at similar times, I believe. Section 7 happens pretty early on. Thanks for putting that up, Bill. But I think that's great. It's a wonderful insight. I'd not thought of that before.
Yeah. Russ, did you have anything else you wanted to say in terms of closing out your thought?
So basically, I was saying that since I have seen this kind of behavior from members in general, and I began to realize that this kind of behavior was conditioned over the past couple hundred years from the leadership and in the church, and so a lot of them are just are not self-aware of it. So they've just been acting like this because they've been taught to do it from, their parents and so on. And so in that case, yes, I do forgive them for not being aware of it. But at the same time, I can no longer be around that anymore. That's one of the main reasons why I left the church, in addition to some more, deep stuff, which if I were to talk about it, it'd take forever. So I feel like when I'm around people that, aren't Mormons or religious in general, they're just so real. They're very authentic. I get along with them great. And I don't feel like I have to put on a performance in order to associate with anyone. And it feels great. I feel like it's a huge burden lifted off my shoulders. I'm just trying to get my family to kind of see the light. And it's a kind of an uphill battle, but they are seeing how happier I am. They're grateful for it, but at the same time, it's like they don't want to leave everything they know. And so I don't talk about being out of the church as much to them, because it's one of those things where the more I talk about it, the further in they go. So
right.
I have to kind of let them find that out on their own. So yeah, that's where I am with that. But like I said, your podcast just opened up my eyes, and I think that the more people realize how fake the behavior is, the more they can kind of wake up to it themselves and be like, yeah, I don't want to be around this anymore. This isn't real. I don't want to feel like I have to perform in order to be socially accepted by anybody. Nobody should do that. It's wrong. It's just completely wrong, and it's very annoying. It's off-putting. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying it. And I think you said it very well, Russ.
Thank you. All right. I've got another call here. So this one's going by the name of Wolfman.
Oh, yeah. Remember Wolfman?
Yeah, he called before. Last on air last Friday.
Yeah, this is going to be the Wolfman Jack Show.
Okay, Wolfman, go ahead.
Gentlemen, are you having a good evening?
It's fair to Midland.
Oh, that's good. Hopefully it improves. I just want to make a couple.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Wolfman.
Yes.
Bill has started laughing at something patently unfunny, and I'm trying to find out what was going on.
Well, I mean, I cut myself shaving. I made a reference to Abraham Lincoln's car instead of Kennedy's Lincoln
Yes.
limo. And it's just been pretty much downhill from there. And then we had to play Brad Wilcox changing the Joseph Smith translation upside down. We talked about Lavina fielding Anderson, and that was bad news. And it just feels like one of those nights where either Bill's going to cut himself shaving or we're going to talk about depressing topics. So
what's the expression you used? What did you say there for a second? Because I didn't quite hear you.
Which expression?
That you're feeling fair to
Midland.
Okay, so that's what I thought you said. Now there's an irony here, which I think you're going to enjoy. Okay.
That is a real phrase, right, everybody? I mean, crazy. There is a fair.
I've never heard it before. No, it's new to me.
Fair.
Okay, so here's the thing: Midland, that's a city in Texas. What you're trying for, I think, is fair to Midland.
Yeah, well,
like middle in.
Yeah.
Fair to Midland.
So here's the URL in the chat.
No D at the end.
Yeah, I hear you, but here's what happened.
Forgive me if I'm sounding pedantic.
That's okay. So what is the meaning of the phrase fair to middling? And then there's what is the origin of the phrase fair to middling, fair to Midland? So there is some debate. There is some debate out there. Oh, look at this. In the UK, fair to Midland derived as either an accidental or deliberate mispronunciation of fair to middling, and fair to Midland is seen as a mistake. So, but it is culturally acceptable.
No, not in my culture.
No, in the UK, where they don't have as nice of teeth.
I think they said fair to Midland is seen as a mistake. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm trying to figure out a way out of this. I'm trying to do mental gymnastics.
You're going for the fig leaf. I think you're getting a gold medal in going for the fig leaf.
I was trying to do fair Mormon apologetics, and it didn't work. That's it.
Did you know Midland was a city in Texas?
It's probably a city in lots of places.
The only one I know is in Texas, but maybe there's a place over there in England called Midland. It's probably in the middle of the country, and it involves land.
Yeah, Midland, Texas.
All right.
Well, there's that.
That was productive.
All right, Wolfman, go ahead. That was a sidetrack.
We got a caller. I'm sorry, Wolfman.
Please.
Why didn't you stop me?
It's all good. It's Friday night. It's Friday night. Hey, Bill, just regarding Lavina, it is heartbreaking, and I think like RFM's feeling like a lot of empathy or whatever. I think we all are. Tonight's the first night I heard about it. But what I like about it, the positive about it, is you were 100% right, Bill, what you said, that was the unpardonable sin, right? And the Oak soundbite is classic. It's so condemning. I think any of us who have been on missions have heard the folklore stories about some missionary who tracked into some murderer or some terrible convict who then got his permission from the first presidency to join the church and get baptized.
Yeah. Yes, this is what I was saying to Martine, Wolfman. When I was talking, Wolfman.
Yeah, so it leads you to the point, like what you said, RF. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay.
That this incident singularly is all that you need to conclude that the church is false, and these men are not good men. That's it. You don't need anything else. There's no other debate. There's nobody who can make the argument like they probably were, had their reasons. There is not a reason in the world if you can baptize a murderer, but you can't baptize someone who's been volunteering in your organization for 25 years plus her entire life before getting excommunicated. It's just sick.
Wolfman, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying to Martine.
Evidence.
You keep getting to a place. I thought it was a period. I apologize. And then I start because I hate dead air. No, this is what I'm saying to Martine. It's not like she murdered somebody. It's not like she's this lady from 30 years ago who killed her two little children by putting them in the car and then pushing it into a lake and blaming it on some guy, carjacking him. and coming up
Yeah,
for
and that's
parole
what I
and not
mean.
getting parole because she's been in prison for 30 years, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Lavina, or is it Lavina?
I don't know actually.
Okay, I'll say Lavina, but Lavina, that's not Lavina.
No, of course. It's not even close. So even on the Brad Wilcox stuff, I mean, the guy's a clown, and I love this thing that just came up recently. And when he did his first priesthood issue, that one that really got him kind of viral and a household name, he came to our town recently or shortly after that, and I went on a campaign to make people aware of, like just to stir the pot before he got there. People would think and kind of pay attention to a couple things. And it was a good opportunity, but on those two, can you imagine like the meetings? This was the first presidency, not one of them, all three of them. Like, can you imagine the crap they talk about when they're like, what secrets do we tell? How do we manipulate them here? Like it has to be just like that grotesque that if anybody overheard it, they would just be so sick to their stomach. Like it would be like, you would see how fake Mormons are because they have to have these conversations to come up with these decisions.
How could you structure a set of facts? Okay, having a career as an attorney, how could you construct a set of facts that would be more likely to evoke a yes, you can be rebaptized response?
Of course, and the point you made earlier of it demonstrates how awful these men are when they do it at their own expense. Free publicity. Like I can't even think. I'm not a marketing guru, but I can't even think of better publicity than that. Like, you laid it out perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this unoffended person. We had to, and it would go perfectly with Oaks. Let's excommunicate everybody right now. It goes right. It like counters his bad press he's had. Like, no, look, we welcome you back. This is what we do. Excommunication's good. Look what a growth opportunity for it. Look at these quotes that are in the paper that she said. They turned that down. Ridiculous.
Yes. This is the classic
example. Their billions, and they don't give a crap about anything else.
You're right. Classic example of cutting off your nose to spite your face. That's what they did.
Oh, they cut off their ears, their nose, all of it. Yes. I can't think of anything more extreme. It's ridiculous.
And this is why I said it, and I meant it. If I forgot everything I know about Mormonism and this was all I knew, what they did, that would be enough for me to know this isn't God's church.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even have to have a testimony. You don't have to be all in. You don't have to have you don't have to weigh anything else out. Singularly, this thing hangs them.
Yes. To my mind, it does.
Yeah. Thank you, Wolfman.
Oh, I agree.
Yes.
I don't think there's too many people who I mean, they just have a tough time making the counter arguments. It's just not really there.
Well, the counter argument is
maybe it's
she only had to wait.
To explain it to you.
She only had to wait 6 more years.
Yeah, till her death, so we could just do it in secret.
Yeah, I won't try and give the
counter
we
argument here.
It's too hot a subject right now. I don't want to go home hating myself.
Oh yeah, hot topic, indefinitely. Your previous caller, he mentioned something about some of the fake Mormonism and why Mormons are fake and these contrived experiences. People being disingenuous. And I remember a couple of those in my own life. And one of the first ones was EFY. It was exactly what he was talking about, but just for kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
These silly group activities. And I'm not opposed to any of those things. I like being silly sometimes, and playing that way. But they're all contrived so that you can have some fake plane crash, antidote, parallel. It's just to contrive some story you can tell yourself later in a fake testimony meeting that's about to take place. The whole thing just leads you down the garden path at EFY. It's so bizarre. But I picked up on one as a kid. I didn't really know what it was. I just knew it rubbed me the wrong way. And it was probably the beginning of my disagreeableness in my personality. One of the first times I remember really thinking about that's not for me. And that won't work for me. Yeah. But the other one was when I drove with a friend to drop his brother off at the MTC. So I was there for that meeting with your family where at the end of it, the missionaries go out one door and the parents go out the end of the door, and everyone's crying like they didn't know what was going to happen. Like that is the cultiest experience I've had other than the temple, where they just like stir the emotion of the entire crowd, and they get the perfect response that they want, even though everyone knew exactly what it was. It's like this tradition to do this. It's like, I was like, and I went on a mission. I chose to go on a mission, and I've served for years and years and years, but I've been out for a while. But and on my own dime. But after that, I was like, I am not doing that when I go to the MTC. And so I did something different. I went by myself. I'm like, I am not putting myself through this like pageantry. This is the dumbest thing I can do.
Well, you're not the only one. I went there by myself too. Because my parents were not members and they were in Texas by that point.
Right. I wasn't worried about going by myself. I just was like, it's interesting that like I can recognize now looking back that like those are pretty definitive things, but those are like, when you grew up in the church, you don't learn to analyze those experiences properly when they rub you wrong, right? They teach you to not trust those things and like, trust us, right? It's not until later when you start trusting yourself and you start reanalyzing, you're rewiring yourself, and that you start picking up on it. But
yes, we make all kinds of
that's why, yeah.
And what you're saying is we make all kinds of excuses.
Making excuses is good, right?
We make all kinds of excuses for bad behavior in the church. We do it everywhere. And that leads to the horrors with child abuse and covering it up and protecting the perpetrators instead of the victims.
Yeah, we just are taught to lie and live this falsehood. Like the one caller who said he likes hanging out with non-members because he doesn't have to deconstruct himself. He can just be there, and he senses that they're genuine at the same time, right? But Mormons, we all are worried about who's pulling the strings and what, and it's no wonder we're fake. We're taught to not be in touch with our genuine self.
And we know what the right words to say are.
Yeah,
Let's just take
in
a
the manual. It's repeated, correlated curriculum.
You give me an idea. Let's just take a microcosm of this and go to Sunday school, the gospel doctrine class. Okay. In virtually every gospel doctrine class throughout the world, nothing new is ever said in any Sunday of the year. And the reason why is because the teacher knows what the teacher is supposed to say. And the class has been around long enough that they know what they're supposed to say. They know what the rote questions are, and they know what the rote answers are. And so all you have is a sort of a recitative that you have the strophe, the anti-strophe, whatever the heck's going on, but it's not learning. It's ritual. It's much more ritualistic what's going on. And it's like a catechism. I'm trying to say catechemistic, if that's a word, than anything learning going on in the Sunday school. And so you go there, and from that, just from that idea, right, that we know what the right questions are and we know what we're supposed to say, we take that with us. It's not just in Sunday school. You have to get to know somebody really well in the church if you're going to let your guard down and actually admit that maybe, you're not as righteous a Mormon as you pretend to be. And by the way, everybody out there who's a Mormon is not as righteous a Mormon as they pretend to be.
Absolutely.
Maybe
I have
there's
a friend who's a convert.
Maybe 6 exceptions to that rule.
There's a few.
But I've never seen any of them talking in general conference.
No. They get filtered out way before that.
With the possible exception
I have a friend who is a convert.
I had to say with the possible exception of LeGrand Richards there, Wolfman.
Oh, yeah. You have quite the Rolodex of facts. I don't know. I mean, I know this is what you do full time, and even when you were an apologist, so you've had to organize it pretty well. But your recall is impressive.
It's phenomenal, huh?
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's only better when I'm not fact checked.
Yeah, I can't fact check you. Don't worry about it.
Thank you so much. If you don't fact check me, I'm brilliant.
There you go. You
No, it's just impressive. Like, I think a lot of us can, like, we know where we want to start, but we can't get to the end, and you get the end often at the same time when we're just trying to weed our way down. You just have the details, and it's a good bonus for the show. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're making me blush.
well, thank you,
Oh,
Wolfman.
don't blush. Just puff on your electric cigarette
Your
there,
movie
or
prop.
whatever your
It's
favorite
not even
prop.
electric. I mean, but I think it's just so cool.
I didn't even want to say e-cigarette. That was wrong. That makes it seem like it's a whatever, like a vape pen. So
Yes.
your prop sig.
Right. Do something like this. Oh, that hurts.
Thank you,
So
Wolfman.
you might want to watch this only in audio. You might want to just maybe we'll edit that out. Did I have you fooled at
Yeah,
all?
who knows? Who knows?
No, you
It's
can
pretty
see
hard.
you can see the cigarette at the edge of your finger. So it didn't work that time. Last week it was great.
Last time I tried it with a real cigarette.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you go, Wolfman. Thank you for the call this week.
Okay,
and
perfect.
Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye. I did that before.
You did it last week where you made the cigarette disappear.
Did I do it on the show or before the show when I was just goofing around for you?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't
Or
have any
maybe the
idea.
people in the live chat can remind me.
I'm just gonna put up here. Somebody's asking a question. Then we got one more phone call we'll get to.
Okay, and then we're out of here, eh?
And we're out of here. So somebody says, is there a difference between deconstruction and deconversion, or are they the same thing? Well, I think they're different. One is inside your head. Deconstruction is that you take apart the issues, you figure out what was real and what wasn't. You look into the history, at least, in Mormonism. You take the issues apart and you decide what was true and what wasn't, and you now form a new way of thinking inside your head that recognizes that much of what the church told you wasn't true. You deconstructed the story that they told you. Now, deconversion is in the head too, in part, but also shows up outwardly as well, because when you deconvert the faith. So I deconstructed it first, came to the conclusion it wasn't true, still was in the church active. I think deconversion is sort of that process of stepping away and no longer believing that faith has any good reason to keep you there, and you deconverted. You converted by joining it. You deconvert by disjoining it, by stepping away, by ending belief and no longer allowing it to have hold on your life.
Can I suggest?
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question. It may be somewhat semantics and definitional, but I would suggest that the essential difference is that one can deconstruct their beliefs in Mormonism without leaving the church. So deconstruction does not necessarily mean deconversion, though I think probably in 90+% of the cases, there's a big overlap there. And that we become deconverted as we deconstruct. Certainly that was the situation with me. What about you, Bill?
Yeah, same things. So, I think they are very much connected, could mean the same thing, but also can mean something slightly different. And like you said, I think deconstruction doesn't require you to leave. Deconversion does in some way require you to step away, because it's the opposite of conversion.
I would suggest that perhaps the example of this is Richard Bushman, because I believe that Richard Bushman has deconstructed Mormonism, but he has not deconverted.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why people look at him and say, huh?
I just said great example.
Yeah. He's walking down the streets of New York. People look at him. They go, huh?
Yeah, he doesn't make sense, huh? He seems an anomaly.
Yes. It doesn't seem to make sense from the point of view of most people.
Yeah.
But there he is.
Yeah. The dominant narrative is not true. Hence, it's not a translation. It's a commentary. All right. Tabitha is our last call for the night. Tabitha in The Cat That Ate the Canary. Tabitha, tell us about the cat that ate the canary.
Okay. So I just have to say, a few weeks ago, you two were talking about the segment where they're Oaks and they're doing the apologetic, I've never, we've never lied to you. The idea
This
that
idea
the church is hiding.
that the church is hiding something, which we would have to say as two apostles who have covered the world and know the history of the church and know the integrity of the first presidency and the Quorum of the 12 from the beginning of time. There has been no attempt on the part in any way of the church leaders trying to hide anything from anybody.
We've been hiding that for a long time.
It's amazing that they had a first presidency. I was just going to say, it's amazing they had all 15, the Quorum of the 12 and the first presidency since the beginning when there's only 2 people on the planet. And one of them couldn't hold the priesthood anyway.
Yeah.
So the comment that absolutely killed me was when RFM was like, and Oaks is sitting over there like the cat that just ate the canary. And it was spot on. He exactly does. And I have laughed over that for weeks. It is so funny, but if you look at his face, it does. He looks like the cat that just ate the canary.
Yeah, this is the big brother who's sending his little brother into the store to shoplift some candy for him.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the little brother, by the way.
And my So, and my other thought, well, all right, 2 other thoughts. So I have always, like, in my mind, cast, Oaks as Sam the Eagle, the Muppet.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, he
Now,
seems
actually, can I talk to you about this observation before you go on?
Yeah.
I think in his middle age, when he had the bushy black eyebrows, he much more resembled Sam Eagle from the Muppets. But now that he's lost his eyebrows and pretty much everything else except a pair of glasses and a nose to perch them on, I think he looks like Professor Bunsen Honeydew.
Yeah. That's true. That is true. So, and I've actually in my mind have cast you 2 as Statler and Waldorf.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, the 2 Muppets that sit in the balcony.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like razz everybody.
I guess that's us.
You intellectually do. Yeah, you're Statler and Waldorf.
Sometimes when my jokes fall flat, I feel like Fozzie.
Great. No, my last comment was in I think it was 2019 they changed. So forever the questions for the temple recommend the honesty question. And Bill, I'm sure you can speak to this because you were a bishop. It was flat out, are you honest in your dealings with your fellow men? In 2019, they changed it. And they changed it to, do you strive? I'm trying to think what it is now. It's like, do you strive to be honest in all that you do? Which gives you some room to fudge your honesty. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, it was to help the members, it was to help the members. But I think they did that for the leadership because they flat out know they're lying. Anyhow, so I wondered what your thoughts were on that.
They're as honest and transparent as they know how to be. It's not very much. But that passes the question.
My thoughts end up being less insightful and more charitable, I fear, because I just thought that they reworded it that way because they were tired of, like, every time they asked the question, are you honest in all your dealings with your fellow man? You always get the answer, well, I don't know. I try to be. I try. I don't know if I'm honest in all my dealings, but I really try. It's like, shut up. Let's just rewrite the question so that we are asking the question that they're going to answer yes and not go into an extended speech about it.
Yeah. So we can all lie now. Yay.
As long as you're striving.
As long as you're striving and being as honest as you know how to be. That's good.
It sounded like they were quoting or paraphrasing the words from a hymn there. I'm trying to be like Jesus, right?
Oh, okay. I got it.
Can you read it again if you have it in front of you?
I think the words are, do you strive to be honest in all that you do?
Yeah.
It does sound like a
Strive
like a
to be
primary
honest
goal.
in all that. Is it? I do.
Yeah,
Probably I do because I'm trying to be like Jesus in the hymn or the song. It's a primary
yeah,
song.
yeah. Anyhow,
Well, thank you.
so those were my thoughts. But you two are fantastic. I appreciate the content you put out.
Have a great night, Tabitha.
Thank you so much. Thanks for calling. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful weekend.
All right. Anything else on your mind, RFM?
That's usually how women respond to me, Bill.
Just silence, huh?
Yes.
I hung up on her because I thought the call was over, and so
Oh, she wasn't just ignoring me.
wasn't necessarily her fault. She might have been ignoring you, but we will never know.
Okay, maybe she'll say something about it in the live chat and relieve my doubts and concerns.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, are we rolling out of here, Mr. Real? Is that what we're
Did
doing?
you hear me shut down the call-ins segment of the show?
Was that the boop?
If you heard the beep, I don't know about the boop, but the beep, I actually had my thing muted while I heard the noise, and then I unmuted my microphone, and then because of the delay, you still heard it, which was really weird. Anyway.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. Calls are all done. I've ended the call-in part of the call-in studio. I've ended that. We are at 9:43, and it looks like another episode of Mormonism After Dark
Is in the can. Well, thanks everybody for watching. I've had a wonderful time. I missed the jazz music that we usually have going in the background. Was that going and I just couldn't hear it, Bill?
No, the last like 4 shows we've done, when we play the jazz music, it messes up your audio. And so I think maybe last week it didn't, but like the 3 before that it did, and so I just never turned it on. I was afraid we would continue to run into this glitch.
I thought the jazz band was taking the night off or something. Union rules and all that.
No. Hey, guys. There
we go. It's Barry White's backup band. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks for joining us on another episode of Mormonism After Dark. We appreciate your dropping by and hanging with us for a while. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. And please have a great Friday night. And yes, a wonderful weekend. And join us next Friday night for another episode of Mormonism After Dark. Good night, everyone.